I wanted to make this video to help guide you guys through your first experience, to make sure that you can avoid as much paranoia or negative feelings as you can, and make the first time that you're high a good experience. I put this in a 4-step guide so you know every single thing that I recommend in your first few times for consuming cannabis. With consuming any substance that can alter your consciousness or mind, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. You don't know what it's going to feel like and you don't know how it's going to affect you. So these 4 steps should be able to reduce at least some of the negative consequences that can come up. Tip number 1, consume either by yourself or with very close friends. And specifically, when I mean close friends, I don't mean to try it at a party one day. That's definitely not what I'd recommend. At parties, you don't really know the environment you're in, and you might feel anxious in general. It's better to keep anything that could be externally anxious-ridden outside. Instead, be in your living room or your friend's house or somewhere where you feel safe with people that you feel safe being with. Especially if when you are high for the first time, if you feel a little bit funny or you feel like you're acting weird, you want to be with people that you trust intimately, not with random strangers that might make you more paranoid that you're acting weird. This is also why I recommend smoking by yourself, because you're not going to make yourself paranoid as much in terms of a social situation, but it still means that you should be very cautious and keep yourself in a very safe and comfortable environment. Tip number 2. Don't use edibles for the first time. No. I really recommend against this. And it's actually something I did want to discuss. I think that for women, especially with cannabis, from what I've noticed, a lot of my girlfriends don't like the idea of smoking or inhaling anything. It feels kind of weird to them. And so they're always like, oh, well, I'll just use edibles. And then more frequently than not, I hear about really bad experiences with edibles. And because of that, I see a lot of my female friends less likely to try weed in the future because of that edibles experience. So in general, I just recommend against them in the beginning. The reason is, edibles are difficult to dose. You can eat a brownie or eat a cookie or eat a gummy, whatever, and then 30 minutes, an hour later, you don't feel anything, and you're like, okay, let me try a little bit more. And then you do, and then it hits you all at once, and then you feel awful. While it sounds great to eat a cookie instead of smoking or inhaling something, the negative things that come from that just completely outweigh the positives. If you're smoking or inhaling a vapor, it's a lot easier to see how you feel. You can take one hit, wait like 10 to 15 minutes, see how you feel, and then go from there. With edibles, you can't like uneat things, and especially when you don't know the size, if you eat too much, that's just a recipe for disaster. If you're very opposed to smoking or inhaling vapor because you have some health issues or it's just something you really don't want to take part in, the good thing is that now on the legal market in Canada, you can get nano-emulsified beverages. So essentially they work less like an edible and more like a quickly releasing substance. So rather than waiting an hour for something to hit, you wait 8 to 15 minutes. That being said, it's still super hard to dose because it's a drink. You can just, if you've ever been blackout drunk before and weren't expecting to be blackout drunk, you know how difficult that is. It just happens. And the same thing can happen with a cannabis drink if you drink too much. So start very slow, drink half a can, a fourth of a can, share it with a friend, wait a while before you have anything else, and then continue on with your night. Have more, have not more, you decide. Also know if you decide to go with a nano-emulsified beverage for your first time, the milligram amount of THC that the product states is actually, think of it as like ×3 or ×6, because when you nano-emulsify THC, it breaks down to even smaller pieces and you can absorb more of it, which is also why, and leads me to step 3, start low and go slow. This is the motto of Canadian legalized cannabis, but it's honestly the best freaking motto of all time. Start low, go slow. Essentially, you start on a low amount of cannabis, whether that means THC percent or just the amount that you are consuming, and go slowly with it. You don't need to take 3 hits because you saw your friend take 3 hits. You take as much or as little as you want. You wait it out and you see how you feel. That is the surefire way to have a way better experience than if you're trying to impress people. You can always consume more, you can never consume less. Number 4, if you do start feeling weird, have a go-to fun song ready at hand. What I mean by this is when I first started smoking weed, I think the very first time, I spoke with my brother and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about smoking weed. Do you have any tips? I'm really scared and nervous. And at the time, King Kunta was like big and I really liked it. And he was like, if you start feeling weird and start feeling paranoid or anxious or start feeling negative thoughts, stop it and listen to King Kunta. So needless to say, that happened that night. I started feeling weird and I was like, no, I don't want this to happen. I put on King Kunta. I was just vibing with it, enjoying having a good time, and it made me kind of forget all of the bad thoughts that were in my head this second before. Cannabis and music have a really beautiful relationship. They go really well together, and at least for me, I find that the emotions that I find in the music I'm listening to, I'm very, very susceptible to them when I'm high. So don't go for like a Lana Del Rey type of thing, because you might just start feeling a little bit spirally. Go for something uplifting and happy, something that gives you good thoughts. If music isn't your thing, this leads me to my last and final recommendation, which is if you're feeling weird and you don't feel good and you want it to be over, either watch some Netflix or sleep it off. At the end of the day, just know that cannabis can't kill you. However you feel is gonna go away in like 1 to 2 hours, unless you're having an edible, in which case it's gonna be a little bit more hours, but overall it will end. So pick something good on Netflix that you like, something that you are familiar with to watch and enjoy, or honestly just take a nap, go to sleep, and it'll be over before you know it. Bonus tip, also, when you're high for the first time, you might forget to drink water. So drink water, folks. It's really, really good for you. H2O. Let's go. My last bonus recommendation is for a lot of people, the more you learn about something, the scarier it, not the less scary it becomes. When you learn, things aren't as scary. If you understand them, they're not an enigma anymore. So learn about cannabis before you try it out. Learn what you're getting yourself into, and instead of being worried about it, be excited for a new fun experience. And by watching this video, trust me, you're already miles ahead than I was when I first started, so you're gonna be fine. These are just my tips and recommendations for how to make your experience not a bad one. But I'd also love to share my tips and recommendations for how to make your experience a really freaking good time. So let me know if you also want those recommendations for my perfect smoke sesh down below. Is that something you're interested in? And also, I think this could be a really fun time for if you want to share your first time smoking weed experiences down below to make people feel not as weird about this plant that we all know and love, then please do share them down below. I want to hear them. I love bonding over this kind of stuff, and I think that knowing more and knowing more people that have tried something just makes it easier for everyone. Anyways, these are just my opinions, and obviously opinions are subjective, except for on this video they are objective because I made the video, you didn't. So take my opinions as they are.